Stories don't just come out of the void, and this tag, created by Blckgrlwriting, was made to discover what goes on inside of our heads, on the pages, and out in the world to make our stories come to life. And after discovering this tag from Ben Pick of Running to Write, I just had to have a little taste of this myself. My name is Amy Rosenfeld, and this week we're diving into the story idea writing tag. We're just going to jump straight into this today. The questions and the answers to them are going to do a lot of the talking. But I'm doing the talking. That is such a weird phrase. Anyway, number 1, current story. What is your current story idea that you're working on right now? I'm editing Semblance, the sequel to Aster's Coda Exposure. By now, in the description. Now that Abby Tacker has been exposed to the 3 worlds and the otherworldly blood feud that she's in, she must now discover her place within it. She must make a name for herself, and forces are out there pushing, pulling, and molding her into what they want her to be. Her brother wanting her to be out of danger. The sub Rosa wanting her to be strong and powerful enough to be able to defeat Lordic as soon as possible. Her friends wishing she would just return back to her life on Earth even though they know nothing about what she's doing. Abby has to decide how much of a human and how much of an Aster she wants to be. But it seems her enemies have got other plans for her. This probably makes no sense unless you have read book 1, which you can buy now in the description. Did I mention that? I absolutely did, and I'm gonna mention it again. Number 2, spark of inspiration. Do your ideas begin with characters, plot, world building, or something else entirely? 9 out of 10 times it starts off with a character paired with some kind of visual aesthetic. This is largely due to me also being a hobbyist artist and me drawing characters that I either play in tabletop games or characters that I write about in my books. I usually imagine them with an archetype or a scene that keeps them in mind. Abby was first envisioned as an android fighting a room full of people in black suits. A scene and a visual which has since not come into my books and never will, but that was the basis for Abby. And then another lead, the one of my queer high fantasy, which I'm currently outlining, I imagined them with this certain blue outfit with a rapier in hand. Then I kind of work out a motivation, some kind of personality or archetype that character might have, and then expand from there because I'm a character story writer. Others have been the lead of my cozy fantasy magical realism story, Echo, who I imagined as a personification of the Echo Flower from Undertale. And another character I based off of someone in a music video and the way that they were dressed. And another character that I'm writing in my Dark Academia fantasy was based off one character in a story that was really good, like conceptually, but written really bad, and now it's just like, I'm gonna make it better. If you learn anything from this, guys, it's that reading books that are bad can motivate you to write a good story. Question 3, brainstorm. How do you puzzle piece your story elements together? Do you start with the ending and make your way to the beginning, or vice versa? For me, it comes with set scenes, like I'm directing a film, and the visual aesthetic that sort of comes along with it. Makes sense considering I was studying film a lot in high school and for a year and a bit of university. And then I stopped that because of breakdowns. So that's usually how I get the key scenes, and from there I fit it in a narrative sense, typically using a beat sheet. The 27 chapter beat sheet that features lots of mini 3-act structures is the one that typically works for me. And then from there I just fill in the gaps, and then I sort of rework it and rehash it a lot until it makes sense. And then of course I write it from beginning to end. I'm very much the kind of person who also hates filler and loves continuity. I will constantly be deleting filler scenes as I see them needing to go. I'm merciless when it comes to that. There's one scene that I knew was filler as soon as I finished writing it, because I was just like, oh wait, we could just have this finish here and it would be okay. And when it comes to my plotting stages, just to ensure I try to cut out as little as possible, I try to make sure each character in the story has a role or a purpose, even if that purpose is to die. I would make a very pretentious manager. Number 4, keep or toss. How do you know when you want to keep or dump a story idea? When it no longer excites me or gets me thinking. Or if I realize something completely and utterly bad about it. This quite often happens for me either as I'm just starting to write a book or during the outlining stages. It can sometimes surprise me how ideas that I have held onto for a very long time just completely seem boring in a matter of seconds, I guess. Like my Moonwitch saga, that was held in my head for at least 7 years before I started writing it, and then probably chapter 6 I was like, no. Furthermore, Aster's Coda was the shinier idea at the time, though that would be the only exception, because when I was midway writing my shitty Wattpad draft of book 3, I realized how much nothing was happening. And instead, I decided to rewrite the entire series. That's how dearly I held it to me, I guess. But yeah, I lose faith in ideas very quickly. So much that I have an entire series dedicated to ideas I have lost faith in. Number 5, original idea. How much of your original idea for your story is actually used once everything is finished? For Aster's Coda, not much. From the get-go, I did want this to be a 5-part series, and for each book to have a certain adversity for Abby to overcome. The first book being her exposure, the second book being, that's a spoiler. I think the only book with an altered goal in that series would be book 4, and this being the only series that I have developed so extensively, I don't really have too much to make a judgment or a basis off. I've literally just started, or I'm in the middle of developing 4 series at the same time. I hate myself. But for semblance, the goal's the same, the villain of this particular arc, or at least one of them, is the same, because they got a scene partner and the way that they were framed as a villain became different. The main plot changed a lot because of how much ended up changing in the grand scheme of things, because book 1 of the Aster's Coda series now is very different from its first version. In the first book, all of Abby's friends knew about her powers. This is even though half of them were directly involved with the 3 worlds. But this time around, it revolves more around her secrecy. Oh, and the ending changed. For sure. Ending is way darker, mild spoiler. I should probably stop talking about this before I reveal the entire secrecy about how everything happens in the book series, every twist, every turn, any plot twist, every secret. Number 6, hide or share. Do you share your book ideas with friends or keep them a secret? Both, to an extent. I won't spoil anything major when it comes to my stories, because some of my closest friends and family read my works. But I share overarching concepts, and if I ever have a cool story idea, I'll be able to tell them about it and start brainstorming stuff with them, including some of the more random story ideas. I think the most that my friends know about Semblance was how fun it was to write the villain. It's a really weird balance, because I both enjoy sharing my story and talking about stuff within it, but I also really love keeping secrets about story-based stuff. At the same time, it makes me very paranoid about stuff being weird or unpleasant as they develop, because I've heard about TV series which I only watched 1 or 2 seasons of, and then I hear what goes on afterwards, and that stuff feels so weird and it doesn't make sense to me in the present moment. And I really hope nobody will end up feeling like that about Aster's Coda. Number 7, dream. Have any of your book ideas originated with a dream or a nightmare? I get scenes from dreams more than I do fully fledged story ideas. For instance, I wasn't sure what I wanted to put in a certain part of book 4, and then I had this very aquatic, siren charm related kind of dream. And then that is going to be something that's going to be in book 4 because of that dream. It made me work the dream around the narrative. The only time I did get inspiration for an entire story was for this fantasy standalone in which it involved a trickster god helping a girl escape a deadly escape room house. It wasn't actually a trickster god in the dream, but the connections that I made because the idea was so cool and interesting just really appealed to me. Though I have no idea if I'm actually going to write it, because forever first drafts exists. But that's the only time I've gotten a full story idea inspired from a dream. My dreams are very mundane. I dream about getting stuck in school and shit. Number 8, doppelganger. Have you ever had an idea for a story but then seen a similar premise in a book, TV show, or movie? Yeah, all the time. I read City of Bones and I realized as I was reading it how similar it was to Aster's Coda, and I was so glad I wrote the better version. It makes a good marketing connection to say that I wrote something better than something that is immensely popular and kind of regarded as terrible, even though people still love the Shadowhunter series. This is the 73rd time I've hated City of Bones on my channel, surely. But like, what's the big deal if your story is the same as someone else's? I see a lot of people getting upset about it, but it just becomes great marketing material. Creativity doesn't exist in a vacuum, and how the story's told matters just as much as what the story is itself. I mean, the countless number of romances told in different ways and with different styles and voices. Besides, some people enjoy familiarity. Number 9, big screen inspiration. Have any of your favorite movies, TV shows sparked ideas for scenes in your book? Oh, hell yes. I look out for this quite a bit and try to do a retrospect sort of thing in my head. Men in Black inspired Aster's Coda. Stranger Things helped me inspire Maledict's. Ruby helped me work out how to write fight scenes for Aster's Coda, but I think the root for all of my inspiration comes all the way back to Percy Jackson. That was the series that made me want to write due to how stimulating and new and exciting for me the writing style was. It was unlike anything I had ever read before. And in the middle of reading that series, I wrote my first ever novel. I started to write a spy story down. And an even deeper root, I think, would be DreamWorks movies during the 2000s, because that was when I grew up and the different kinds of media I watched then ended up influencing me, and the DreamWorks movies always stuck out as stories that I was able to connect with and enjoy a lot. I would watch them repeatedly and unashamedly. Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, Over the Hedge, the Wallace and Gromit movie. Number 10, nostalgia. What's the first, oldest story idea you remember coming up with or writing down? And the first story idea I ever came up with on my own was that Moon Witch Saga story series thing. I think I would have started developing in my head that particular story since I was 7 or 8 years old. I explain more of it in the series, which has definitely been linked in this video multiple times. You can check the cards to check out the first video and the entire series. When I was first developing it when I was 7, it had so many cliches. I would play scenes from this book out with my friends, and most of it was just us running around the classrooms and the trees in our school, basically. It's genuinely weird that I didn't make that my first series. I mean, probably because it was a giant fanfiction mess that I tried to make original. It was a bigger crossover than Endgame. They stole my idea. So I think with things getting completely original for Aster's Coda, that's why I made that one the first story idea to fully develop and eventually publish. And there we go. That is the end of the story idea writing tag. You can check out Ben's video and the original video down in the description for you to try out for yourself. And if you manage to learn about this video tag through me, then yay! Try it out for yourself. Let me know if you do it. Yay! With all that being said, if you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new around here. You can ring that bell to find out when I post more creative content. And you can also find me in the description down there on my Instagram, my TikTok, and my website. Stay creative, everybody, and I will see you in the next video.